My name is Benjamin Poole, and when I was 23, I gave my life savings to a broker who lost it all. But this taught me an invaluable lesson. I needed to educate myself to make my own financial decisions. Fast forward 20 years, I am no longer living paycheck to paycheck, and I want to share everything I've learned with you. Welcome to Financially Fit. Welcome to Financially Fit. My name is Benjamin Poole, and today I've got a couple charts for you guys, SMCI, and then I have mRNA that I told you guys about the other day with its inverse head and shoulders pattern. I want to show you guys kind of what it did and what we can be looking for as far as the SMCI chart. I also have Lawton back. He's going to ask me a couple questions. Thank you guys so much for reaching out so I can go over a couple more charts, something that you guys are interested in. I do appreciate all the comments and stuff like that. So here we go into the charts. The first chart I'm going to go over, like I said, was SMCI. So what I think is super fascinating is last week I went over mRNA and I showed an inverse head and shoulders pattern. Well, here on SMCI, we have this kind of semi head and shoulders pattern. So what you're looking for is at the tops of the charts, you're looking for a left shoulder and then a head that's higher than the left shoulder, and then you've got a right shoulder. Also, what you're looking for is to make sure that the armpits on this right shoulder is lower than the armpit on the left shoulder. So you're looking for this upsloping trend line. All right, so that's a lot of chaos right there. And then once you've got that defined pattern, you can take the top of the head, take a measurement all the way down to what's called the neckline, and then you can draw the same line from here all the way down to your expected target. Okay, so what I find is interesting is SMCI along this neckline right here is really good support right now. And so what we're waiting for is we're actually waiting for a break of this neckline. All right, so if it breaks, there's two ways to play this. You can either play this as soon as it breaks and it closes, then you can enter the trade. And if it closes back inside or above this neckline, then you can put your stop out there. The other way to do it is to wait for a break below, a confirmation, which means that the next candle after this, or a couple other candles after this, has to close lower than the lowest point in that tail. And then you could play it for a retrace to what's called the scene of the crime. So basically back to the neckline. So that is how you could play it. And then you could look for your downside target. I'm zoomed in a little bit too much here, so you guys can't really see the downside target. But let me zoom out on this. And I want to show you something else that I find is interesting in this chart. Okay, so you do have a downside target of pretty close to $464.12, which is actually a lot of sideways consolidation right here. So it would be great support if it does go down to the level. You do have this gap fill right here and this gap fill right here that it should get a bounce on. But here's an interesting thing, right? So it does have this head and shoulders pattern, but it's also got this bigger bear flag or this bearish triangle, right? So, bullish triangle. So there's no guarantees that this thing is going to break down. So what do I do on a chart like this? I look for defined support and resistance lines, and then I can play off of that. So right here, if I were to get into this trade and just waited, it could chop up. So I actually want to wait until it gets to like this level, short it here, and then wait for it to drop. Because if it closes above here, above this level at any time, even if it's down here, I can exit that trade and I'll still be in the money. So there's a couple different ways, you can play every trade. Just because you see a certain pattern, some of the biggest moves actually come from failed moves. SMCI did have a big upgrade today, so it was up as high as almost $50 on the day and before getting a significant pullback. So just something to kind of keep your eyes on when you guys are looking at the charts. So mRNA, similar to SMCI, but in the inverse, right? So we had this inverse head and shoulders pattern. What I was telling you guys is a break above the neckline. So 1603 would be a breakout, and that would be on the upside. But it didn't. So at no point would we have gotten in this trade, or at least for me. But you do have this upsloping trend line right here. It kissed it right there. And so on a retrace, you could actually play this for a long position even before it breaks out above the neckline. And the reason that you could do that is because you have a very defined stop out. So if any close below this line, you can just stop out and you have a very, very minimal risk versus all this reward, especially if it breaks out. All right? So those are my charts on SMCI and mRNA. So Lawton's going to ask me a couple questions. What do you got for me?
First question, talking about SMCI, quick here. What is the best level to add for a swing trade for SMCI?
Okay, best level if you were in for a swing trade. I kind of went over this a little bit in the chart, but I can do it again. There's a couple different ad levels actually that I have on SMCI if I were going to get into it. And it depends on how you're going to play this, right? So for example, if you're in it a small position or not in it at all, you could enter it right here. And any close above this line, this trend line right here, then you would just stop out. So that would be one way to play it. Or let's say you take away that line. You know that you're going to have a lot of resistance right here because this huge red bar candle. So right around 1031.04, and I think we got up there today. Oh, no, we didn't. But if it got up to that level, that would be another add point. And then you've got this level right at basically a pierce of 1100. If it got back up there, that would be another add point. The thing to keep in mind when you're going, when you're adding to positions on a stock like SMCI, this thing moves $50 to $100 in a day sometimes. So if you're uncomfortable now in the trade and you're adding to it and it starts going against you even more, then you're going to be even more uncomfortable. So it really depends on your risk tolerance as well as your comfort level.
Sure. Christopher asks, getting started in day trading, what's the best or recommended platform or exchange to be able to execute these types of short-term trades?
There's no one best recommended platform. So I actually use TradeStation connected to TradingView. And so for me, I find that extremely useful. It's a useful tool because then I have all my trading and my charting on the same platform. I used Interactive Brokers. There is a delay with Interactive Brokers, and so I actually switched away from that. There are some people who use Interactive Brokers as well as Thinkorswim, and they do that right on their platforms and then have TradingView as a separate charting platform, and that works for them. So it really depends on each individual trader.
Sure. Where do you think GDDY is headed?
GoDaddy.
GoDaddy.
All right. That's a good question. All right, let's take a look at this thing. Oh, I haven't gone over GoDaddy in a while. So what I'll do is I'll just real time draw in these lines. So first thing I see is this upsloping trend line right here. So it's actually hitting along the upsloping trend line. This is 1, 2, this will be about the third time it's hitting on the upsloping trend line. So it hasn't broken down. It has put in a little bit of a rollover or a rounded top, but again, it hasn't broken below this trend line. So what I would do is I would actually wait for additional confirmation. So so what I'm looking for, I'm going to move this chart over so I can kind of draw on this, is you're looking for this rollover top, a lower high, and then a lower low, a lower high, and the lower low. So just like this trend line is acting as support, I'm going to wait for something like this to act as resistance. Because if I'm trying to short something that doesn't have a lot of resistance, then it can keep going up. At least with this, on the third hit, I can expect a big pullback, and then it gives me something to put my stop out on. So
Sure.
Right now, it's still in an uptrend.
Next question comes from Giacomo. Would you short Nvidia at these levels or wait for something better?
This comes back to the exact same kind of a question. So let's go to Nvidia. So I've actually got, Nvidia is an amazing chart. I don't know why it's not. Okay, here we go. All right. So you've got this awesome parallel channel. So you've got these two highs right here. You draw it here and you connect the parallel channel, and it basically connects these two lows. So right now, if it breaks below, because this is a downsloping trend line, a downsloping parallel channel, if it breaks this, you could play it like it's a head and shoulders pattern. And so you could play the retrace. And so that would be one instance where I would get into Nvidia at this level. Right now, it's already off of its highs. It was 975, and it's trading at 876. So it's $100 off of its highs. So again, what you're wanting to do is either this trend line, you want to wait for this trend line, or you want to wait for, if this creates a trend line, then you could short it off of this trend line right here, and just know that your stop out is going to be any close above that. And then there's other additional levels that I like as well, is this red bar candle right here. So this red bar high, probably around 925 would be another add level. And it really depends on your strategy. It really depends on if you have your stop outs, if you're adding to your position. I'm not a person who likes to chase, so I would probably wait. But you gotta have those levels.
Sure. One final question for you. Does BA look like a buy right now?
Boeing, absolutely. Yes, BA. Boeing looks like a huge buy level. It's actually closed below a couple key support levels, but for me, that's not a problem. So it got below this pivot low right here. Right here, it got that initial bounce. But now you have all this consolidation right in here. And this level at 169.59 area is actually right into all this support. And you have additional support right here. So ultimately, I think Boeing is a great long position for now.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's all I got for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching Financially Fit. Again, my name is Benjamin Poole, and thanks, Lawton, for asking the questions for me. I appreciate that. Please make sure you like and subscribe and follow, and do your own research. This is for educational purposes only, and we'll see you next time on Financially Fit. Take care.